Hi and welcome to Full Tower TV. My name is Rafael, and in this video we're going to talk about the Corsair Frame 4000D. Now this is a new variation of the 4000D, so don't get mixed between the two. These are two different cases, and the Frame 4000D is kind of a refresh to the original 4000D, and also a lot of changes in terms of the design of the case. So in this video, we're going to go over through all what this case has to offer, and I will show you exactly everything you need to know if you're considering buying this case, what you need to know if you're building a computer, and hopefully by the end of this video, you will have a clear understanding whether if you should buy this case, which version you should buy, and what do you need just in general, knowing about the Frame 4000D. Okay, so let's begin. First of all, we have three different variations with this case. We have the Frame 4000D, we have the Frame 4000D RS, and the RS ARGB version. The case comes in two colors, black and white, and the base model, the Frame 4000D, comes without any fans, and it's around $105. If you take a look on the Frame 4000D RS, this one comes with free pre-installed fans, which in value they usually cost around 30 to 40 bucks, but if you buy them pre-installed with your case, you pay only around 10 bucks extra. Now it is important to note that these fans are not ARGB or RGB or something like that. They're just plain like black color fan, or white if you get the white version. And if you go for the Frame 4000D RS ARGB, you will get the same fans but with some lights on them. And these fans are usually cost around 50 to 60 bucks, a little bit more expensive, but here again you pay only $10 extra. Right now I saw there is a sale for the RS ARGB version for 110, which is a pretty good deal, because if you remember, for 105 you buy the case without any fans at all, but yeah, this is for extra $5. Why not get the ARGB fans? It seems like a pretty good deal to me. And of course, you can always leave the RGB turned off if you don't really like it, but I don't really see why you should spend more if you can find the ARGB version on a sale. Now, let's talk about the fans connectivity. The pre-installed fans that comes with the Frame 4000D have daisy chain capability, meaning you can connect all the fans together, one to each other, and use only one header on your motherboard. And how exactly is it working? You can see over here in the picture, and this picture is an example for the ARGB fans. You have one connector which is power and one connector which is for the lights. The ARGB connector that each fan will have one female and one male connector on the other end. And the female is the part where you plug it into the motherboard, and I will show that in a moment. But the male part is the one that will be connected to another fan. So each fan has this daisy chain capability, and you just plug one fan to another, and the first fan or the last fan, it doesn't really matter, you plug that one into your motherboard, and then the motherboard will detect all the fans together. And it's a pretty cool way to save some cost and some headache with like controllers, and not all motherboards have a lot of plugs on the motherboard to supply for RGB or power and stuff like that. So it's very important to notice those things before you buy the case, because if you want to add more fans and you want to plan your build as you should, you really need to be thoughtful about how many connectors you have on the motherboard, how are you going to plug your fans. And yes, of course, you can always buy like a hub, like a controller or something like that to control everything together. But it's nice to plan ahead and to see that you have everything ahead of time. And this is an example for the power connector. It has the same functionality. This is the cable that provides power to the fans. And you can see here it has the female connector and the male connector as well. Let's see how it looks on the motherboard. So I have a Gigabyte motherboard over here. This is the B760 Gaming X. I think it's an AM5. No, sorry, this is an Intel 12, 13, 14 gen motherboard. It's pretty recent. It's also a big motherboard. It's an ATX motherboard, so it has a lot of connectors, but this is what you will get typically in the layout. You can see over here at the bottom, you have the system fan connectors. You can see here it says sysfan 3. So here is where you plug the power connector. And if you take a look over here, you have the ARGB connectors. And you can see you have only two. You have one over here, one over here. And you also have another LED connector. This is the older RGB standard, not the ARGB. You can see it has 4 pins and not 3 like we have with ARGB. And this is basically means that the lights in this connector can't be changed. They can only be turned on or off. It has a fixed mode, and the ARGB A stands for addressable. It means that each LED can be can change the colors individually, and this is the newer standard for RGB these days, and this is what allows you to make those really nice colors in your PC. Now, if you have a big motherboard like this one, you might have more ARGB connectors, more than 2 or more than 1 at least. And you might also have more system fan connectors. You can see them right over here at the bottom right. There is no writing here, but you can see by the type of the connector that these are used to plug fans into them. So with a big motherboard like this, you do have a lot of connectors and you don't need to worry too much about daisy chaining. But again, it's good to make sure. You can always take a look on your motherboard, see a picture like this one, and just make sure you have all the connectors that you need. Okay, so let's talk about size and dimensions. This case is a mid-tower class case. It's not small, it's not too big, but it is a little bit big for mid-tower, which in my eyes is a good thing, because mid-towers can be sometimes not very, especially if companies don't really think about the design and they really try to make sure everything fits, then you can run into some trouble. So this one is a little bit on the, let's say, bigger side of mid-towers, 48.6 centimeters in height and 49 centimeters in length. It's not a small case, almost 24 centimeters in width. But again, I think it's good that it is that way. I mean, if you want a compact gaming PC, you probably wouldn't even consider this case. But if you're looking for a mid-tower case, there's a common issue with a lot of mid-tower cases that have some restrictions and some compatibility problems. And because this case is a little bit bigger than usual, it means that it will have the compatibility with pretty much anything you want to throw at it. And we will see that in a moment. Of course, we will talk about compatibility with other parts and exactly what can you fit inside this case and what you cannot. But yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to say about the size. And over here you can see some examples for how big this case is. It's definitely not on the smaller size of mid towers. You can see over here this cute little cat. This is actually a pretty nice build over here. I really like this one. You can see over here on the table next to a bicycle. It is a little bit. It looks a little bit bigger than it actually is over here. Of course, this in this picture the case is a little bit closer to the camera than the bicycle, but again, you can kind of get the idea. I really tried to find as much pictures as possible, and of course, we will also take a look at some builds and reviews towards the end of the video, so make sure you stay tuned for that. So, the front panel is something that is kind of interesting over here. Corsair decided to put the connectors and the whole front panel layout at the bottom of the case, opposing to the previous 4000D, which had the connectors at the top. Over here, it's at the bottom. So it's something that is worth mentioning, because if you are planning to put your PC on the floor, like here, for example, then you might find it a little bit hard to get to the front panel. And I think if you buy this case, it's probably better if you're planning to put it on a table like this. Then you'll have easy access to your front panel connectors. But yeah, if you don't mind the front panel being at the bottom and you still want to put it on the floor, so that's how it looks like. And again, I really tried to give you as much as examples of builds as possible, so you can see exactly what are you buying, and just so you can know what to expect. I want to take a moment to talk about the connectors themselves, what you have, what you don't have, and what you need to pay attention to. So there's one thing that is missing in this front panel, and that's a reset switch. You do have the power button, you have a combo audio jack, and this one is can carry both headphone and microphone. So if you have a headphone that has two separate plugs, the green one and the pink one that says microphone and headphone, you probably need some kind of adapter if you want to use this side to connect audio to. But you can also use the back of your motherboard. Most motherboards have the 2 ports and not the combo jack. So that's something that is worth mentioning. You should pay attention to that. And also the USB. So the 2 USB ports, the Type A ports, the full size, they are USB 3.2 Gen 1, which means there are 5 gigabits per second, which translates to around 625 megabytes in real world speed, like when you transfer files and stuff like that inside your computer. And you also have a Type-C connector, which is a lot faster, of course. I think it also supports charging. I'm not sure. Either way, the most important thing to know about the Type-C connector is that not all motherboards have a header for this connector. This connector have a very special dedicated cable that needs to go to the motherboard. And I'll show you where the connector is. On a modern motherboard like the Gigabyte one we saw earlier, you can see it right over here. So this is the Type-C header that you will need for the front panel. Make sure your motherboard has it. Not all motherboards have. I know some people don't really care about the front Type-C connector. So if your motherboard doesn't have, you can just leave it off and just it won't work. It's totally fine. But yeah, it's something that is worth mentioning. And we're talking about motherboards. Let's talk about motherboard support. What kind of what size of motherboards you can fit inside this case? Pretty much every motherboard you can think of. You can fit a mini ATX, a micro ATX, a full-size ATX like the one we saw just now, and you can also fit extended ATX motherboards, which are full ATX motherboards, but they're a little bit wider. And you can also fit BTF style motherboards, and we'll talk about BTF style motherboards in a second, what exactly it means. But let's take a look on how it will look like with each kind of motherboard. And there's some stuff that you will need to take care if you're planning to put, for example, a mini ITX motherboard, which is very small. If you're planning to put a big graphic card and an AI cooler, first of all, I think it looks kind of weird. And second of all, as you can see here, I know this is just a bunch of pictures that I put in together, so it doesn't really represent how the PC should be built, but you can see it can run into some clearance problems with tubings and stuff. So I don't really see a reason to use an ITX motherboard with a case like that. Maybe if you like, I don't know, if you had like a mini PC and you wanted to upgrade to a bigger case and you transfer your hardware in it, then yeah, so just consider that. Make sure that you know that you might have problems if you are going to use a mini motherboard. I wouldn't recommend to do so in the first place, but if you are forced into the situation, then yeah, this is how it looks like. A micro ATX can also cause sometimes some problems. Usually it's not. I've built with this case a lot of times before, and I had builds with a lot of micro ATX motherboards, and it was totally fine. But again, here, this is what you can expect, how it will look like. And this is like without water cooling and GPU, and this is with. And overall, it looks okay. And if you take a look on an ATX motherboard, now you start to get the full picture and see a much more complete look to your system. I think going with the full ATX motherboard with a case like this, it's kind of a no-brainer. I think that makes a lot of sense. But if you don't have an option to go with a full ATX motherboard, then you can go with a micro ATX instead. But I think it looks a lot nicer with full ATX motherboard. Plus, full ATX motherboard have a lot of ease of build when you build a computer. And what I mean by that, if you take a look here, you can see you sometimes you don't have a lot of access here. Although in this case, it does look like you do have, but in some cases you can see that micro ATX motherboards can have the ports, for example, under the GPU, and it's hard to reach over there. With full ATX, you have a lot more room and a lot more clearance between the GPU and the connectors, so it's easier to, I don't know, do some maintenance or like changing stuff, or if you need to check something, then it's a lot easier to do it with a full ATX motherboard. And this is just to show you how an extended ATX motherboard would look like. It does take the full like motherboard tray, and you can see that it fills a lot of space comparing to a full ATX motherboard. And extended ATX motherboards, let's say it like that. If you are considering buying an extended ATX motherboard, you probably don't need to watch this video, to be honest, because these are very high-end boards with tons and tons of like features and like stuff in them. You have like an M.2 slot next to your RAM, and these motherboards are usually very expensive. So yeah, if you are buying an extended ATX by mistake or something, or you just, spend a lot of money on your motherboard, you should know that it will fit in this case. But either way, I thought it's important to mention it so you would know. Okay, so BTF style motherboards. And BTF style motherboards are something that is a pretty new concept, not that new. I think it's been around like a year or two in the market. You can find motherboards that have reverse connections. And the point of a BTF style motherboard is to have 0 cables at the front. So not that long ago, a lot of like PC builders and a lot of companies really tried to solve the problem that you have with like a lot of cables in front of your computer, and they really try to modernize the way we do cable management. So what they did, specifically ASUS has the BTF name to it. They have a patent on that. If you buy an MSI motherboard, for example, it will be called Project Zero, and Gigabyte have Project Stealth. But basically how it looks like, you can see over here that all the connections for your motherboard are at the back and not at the front. And you can see that at the front, everything is covered. There's no headers whatsoever. And it's a cool concept. I don't think it really sticked, to be honest. There are not a lot of BTF or Project Zero motherboards available at the market. They're also very expensive. And the reason why this case fits a BTF style motherboard, and we will see that later, but you can see all the cutouts over here in this picture, for example. You can see it's a little bit unusual. There's a lot of cutouts in the motherboard, and those cutouts are for the connectors that you have at the back of a BTF style motherboard. So not all cases can fit those motherboards. This case does. You can fit a BTF style motherboard in it. So if you're planning to buy one, you should know that this case will support it. And this is how it might look like with a BTF style motherboard. You can see right over here. You can see the cutouts at the back for all the ports and headers. This is how it looked like with like some AIO cooling and with a graphic card. And now let's talk about liquid cooling. In this section, we will talk about which kind of liquid coolers we have, which kind you can fit in this case, and which kind you can't fit in this case. So let's take a look on how to recognize what kind of a cooler are we buying, what kind of coolers there is, and what kind of coolers we can fit in this case. And basically, liquid coolers are split to 2 categories. Ones that are built with 120mm fans in the radiator, and ones that are built with 140mm fans in the radiators. The math behind the size of your liquid cooler is pretty simple. If you have one fan, 120mm fan in your radiator, that's 120mm liquid cooler. If you have 2, it's 240, because 2 120mm fans equals to 240. And a 360, well, you will have 3 fans. With 140mm fans, you can have a dual radiator like this one over here. So 2 140mm fans are 280. It's a 280mm liquid cooler. And if you have 3 140mm fans, then this is a 420mm liquid cooler. And if you ask yourself, what is the benefit of bigger fans? The answer is pretty simple. It's much more efficient in terms of noise. So the bigger the blades, the less faster the fan needs to spin. So if you need to push, let's explain it like this. If you need to push a certain amount of air, right, and you have bigger blade, then the blade can push a lot more air. Because it can push a lot more air, it doesn't need to spin as fast as a smaller fan. As a result of that, the fan will be a lot more quieter. So you do want to try to get a big cooler, but not all cases can fit. And this case, for example, cannot fit a 420 millimeter cooler. Actually, there isn't a lot of cases that can fit 420 millimeter coolers unless you buy it like a really huge case, because these coolers can get pretty chunky. They're pretty big. But a 200 millimeter radiator, for example, it's a pretty good option, or you can go with a 361. But this one will be a little bit more silent. So over here, we can see a layout of the case where exactly you can fit coolers, liquid coolers in this case. You can see at the top, you can fit 120, you can fit a 240, a 360, and you can also fit a 280, which will have 140 millimeter fans on it. At the back, you can fit only a single radiator water cooling, and at the front, you can also fit the same as you can fit at the top. Again, no 420 millimeter coolers in this case. And something that is very interesting, you can also fit a radiator over here at the side. And we will see that later in the pictures and builds and stuff like that. And the way you do that, if you can see over here in the picture, this side is actually a cable cover, but that cable cover you can actually remove and replace it with a bracket that fits to install fans and radiators on it. And this bracket comes included with your case. You get this in the box. It comes pre-installed with the normal bracket over here, which is the cable cover, but you can change it to this one, and it does come included inside your case, which is a pretty nice feature, a pretty nice add-on. And there's something also that is important to mention, but if you can see over here, you can see that you have this kind of weird screw over here, and this one is actually your GPU anti-sag solution that Corsair have. So if you put a big graphic card over here, this little arm will help hold your GPU and not let it sag. It's a good safety feature if you're carrying your computer around from place to place, even though I recommend if you're carrying your computer around and you have a big GPU, it's probably best practice to disassemble the GPU before you move anything, because it can easily like snap out of place. But in any other way, if you want to avoid sagging, and you know, your sagging is when your GPU looks a little bit like on the side and it has a weird angle, then this will help you. And if you take a look over here, that anti-sag bracket is actually mounted into the stock piece that you will get. So if you're removing it, you will ask yourself then, where do I mount my anti-sag thing, right? Because you can't really mount it here if you're putting a radiator here. So in that case, Corsair provides to you a mini GPU anti-sag mount, which comes included with your case, which will give you the solution to mount the small anti-sag piece directly to the body of the case next to the motherboard. So if you remove this, you can still use this with the additional piece that you'll get with your case. And how I was able to figure information about that, of course, beside building with the case, actually when I built with the case the first time, I didn't know what this piece means, and I had to look on the manual. And over here, I really want to mention the manual that Corsair have on their website regarding the Frame 4000D, which is pretty exceptional. I think it's probably one of the best like guides you can have on a PC case, which list all the parts that you get with the case, You also have like a step-by-step exactly what you need to do with each part, how you can take apart the case. The whole thing about this case is modularity, and it is pretty modular. There's a lot of smart like engineering, designing things that they did with this case, and at first it can be a little bit confusing. You don't really know what to do, where to like take stuff out. So I really recommend you to check this really awesome guide. Of course, I will link it down below. But if you buy the case, you should probably get like a note with like a QR code that you can scan it. It will lead you to the same like site that I'm in right now. And again, I really recommend if you buy this case, make sure to check the guide. You can see everything you need over here. Whether it's like vertically mount your GPU or changing brackets and stuff like that. It's very well made with instructions, and yeah, so something that I really wanted to mention. Okay, now let's take a moment to talk about the Infinirail system. What is the Infinirail system? It's something that you might have seen in all of Corsair's marketing material regarding this case. And basically, I don't know if it was really necessary to do this. I'm going to be strictly honest here. But what Corsair did, they made, instead of like every case, every like normal case, if you want to mount a 120 millimeter fan or a 140 millimeter fan, you will need to change the position, right? Because the position of the screws, because the fan is bigger, then it has like a wider space between the screws. Now, usually cases, what manufacturers are doing, they put holes here and also like for 120 millimeter fans and also for 140 millimeter fans. But Corsair decided not to do so. I don't see the benefit for it too much, to be honest, but let's first explain what it is. So basically, if you want to mount a 120 millimeter fan, you have this little notch right here, which you can unscrew, and then you can move it around. And if you move it to the 140 millimeter section, then it means you can fit a 140 millimeter fan. The thing is, they could have just put two like spots for the 120 millimeter fan and for the 140 millimeter fan. And remember, as we explained before, if you have a 140 millimeter radiator, for example, a 280 millimeter radiator, then you'll want to move this. You have the same system also at the front of the case, right over here. And again, I think it's more a design choice, and maybe I'm afraid to say that, but I think it's more of a gimmick than something that is very practical. I don't know what to think about it. The case of the price of the 4000D remained the same pretty much, like compared to the original one, which didn't have this system. So I don't know, like why. It's obviously cost them a little bit more. It also cost a little bit more to manufacture, I guess. But let me know in the comments if you think there's a very clear benefit to this. Either way, you should know that this is how it works. If you want to change the size of fans in your case, you need to change the positions of the rail so it will fit the size of fan that you have. This is a cool little video that I found on Corsair's website that shows you exactly how it works. I'm gonna put it a little bit larger over here. You can see how the rail is moving to the side. You see over here to the 140 millimeter side, so you can fit bigger fans. I think these ones are 200 millimeter fans, and we'll talk about it in a second in the fan compatibility section. So yeah, this case can fit pretty much fans everywhere. You can put 120 millimeter fans at the top, at the bottom, at the back as well. You can put 140 millimeter fans at the back, at the top, at the front, not at the bottom. And you could put at the front 200 millimeter fans. These are huge fans. Again, the benefit of a big fan is noise. Remember, big fan, big blades, more air. It needs to spin a lot less. As a result of that, the fan will be a lot quieter. Also, make sure if you buy fans, buy good ones. Don't buy crappy ones. And if you want some recommendations, feel free to chat with me in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to help you. Other than that, you should also know that you can put fans at the side of the case over here as well, not only a radiator. And we will see some examples for that when we'll take a look at reviews. And there it is. We already have one example for a case that has all the fans pretty much, except for the top, I think. You put a big amount of fans over here. You can see fans at the side, at the front. These ones are 120 millimeter fans. Remember, usually if it's a size like this, 3 120 or 2 140, you cannot fit 3 140. It will be way too much. If you can fit 3 140 millimeter fans, then you'll probably be able to get the biggest radiator, right? The 420 millimeter one that I mentioned. Since you cannot do that, then it means also that you cannot fit 3 140 millimeter fans. The bottom, like we said before, it's only for 120. The back is also for 120. What I want to mention here, and as you can see with the arrows, is the direction of airflow you should consider in this case. At the front, of course, it's intake. At the bottom is intake. It's not exhaust. And you can see the fans are flipped over here. At the back is exhaust. And if you put fans at the top, it will be exhaust as well. I forgot to put little red arrows over here, but you get the point. And something that I want to mention regarding when you buy fans, you can buy reverse blade fans these days. So these are Thermaltake fans, for example. And you can see this is a regular fan right over here. And this one has the blades upside down. And this is good if you want, for example, to mount RGB fans right here at the bottom. And you don't want to see the ugly sticker side like this, for example. And you want to see the nice, like, side, or if you don't want to see the grill, because over here the blades are at the bottom and these are the grills, right? So something to consider if you want to add more fans. You can see over here the blades are at the back, so you won't see the RGB and stuff like that very clearly unless you get reverse blade fans. And talking about fans, if you want to air cool your system in this case and not liquid cool it, which I personally sometimes prefer in terms of reliability, I think air cooling is better. There are also very good air coolers these days, like Thermalright, for example, makes very good air coolers. They're also pretty big. This is I think it's the Peerless Assassin, if I'm not mistaken. In this case, again, because it's pretty big compared to like a mid tower, you can put up to 170 millimeter in height air coolers in it. So that's pretty good. That means that no matter which cooler you will get, I think I never saw a cooler that is more than 17 centimeters. Even this big site Puma, I think it's a Puma 3, if I remember correctly. I don't exactly remember the name. But yeah, you can fit very big air coolers in this case, again, because it's pretty wide compared to a mid-tower. And yeah, something you should know. In terms of hard drives, you can fit up to two 3.5-inch hard drives in this case, or three 2.5-inch SSDs, which are the smaller ones. And you can see you have one spot here at the bottom and one at the back. At the back, you will have a plate like this. And this plate, you can mount 3.5-inch hard drive, one over here, or two SSDs. You can see one over here, this is SSD 2. You can see SSD 1 here. So you can fit two of these here and another one at the bottom. That's why you can fit three 2.5. Oh, sorry. That's why you can fit three 2.5-inch SSDs and two hard drives. So if you put a hard drive here, then you cannot put another SSD. You will have only the space at the bottom. I think you get the point. I don't know if spending money on a hard drive these days is really smart, because SSDs, especially M.2 SSDs, are a lot more cheaper than it used to be, and they're a lot more faster and reliable, and it's better to buy SSDs. But if you have an old hard drive that you want to move to your new case, then you should know that it can fit up to two hard drives, which is nice. Not a lot of cases can fit two hard drive, like big hard drives. So that's a good thing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the GPU. Again, because this case is pretty big, you can fit pretty big GPUs in it. This is, for a comparison, a full-size ATX motherboard with a pretty chunky GPU. I think it's like a 3-4 slot GPU. You can see plenty of room, no clearance issues whatsoever. It looks very good. To be honest, I would recommend to get, like, if you buy this case, if you want the computer to look nice, get a big GPU. It doesn't even have to be like something very fancy or expensive. Even in like mid-tier models, like you can even find a 5060, which is like big. It will cost a little bit extra, but I think it will add to the look a lot. So yeah, you won't have any problem. You can put up pretty much any size of graphics card in this case. You can also vertically mount the GPU, and like in this picture right here. And there's something that is important to know about vertically mounting your GPU in this case. And that is, if you want to vertically mount your GPU, you will need a riser cable. Okay, because once you don't install the GPU here and install it here, it needs to be connected to the motherboard somehow, and you need a special cable for that. That cable is not included with your case. You need to buy it separately. I will show it in a moment. I have some more examples for vertically mounted GPUs over here, as you can see. This is the new big Astral, ASUS ROG Astral cards, I think from the 50 series. Pretty chunky and huge, and it still fits. And if you want to vertically mount your GPU, here's what is important for you to know. First of all, you will need to change the position of the back plate, as you see over here. In this little video, you have two screws that you need to remove. And then you can flip the brackets like this, and the GPU will be here. You will mount the riser cable that I showed you. So this is the riser cable sold on Corsair's website. And you can see over here, it has two mounting points that you need to mount to the case at the bottom. Basically what it does, it transfers your PCI Express slot to the bottom, okay? And then you plug the GPU over here instead of directly plugging it to the motherboard. And in order to do so, you will need additional standoffs and screws. You get them inside your case. I'll show that to you in a moment. So over here you can see you get 2 vertical mount standoffs. This including with your case, and you can use just regular motherboard screws to secure the bracket to the bottom of the case. You can see them right over here. So you get plenty of those with your case as well, so you don't need to worry about that. Of course, if you're going to vertically mount your GPU here, you want to be able to put fans at the bottom. So you need to think about that. If you're planning to buy more fans, don't consider the bottom of the case because you will have no spot for them, and also no reason to put fans at the bottom, to be honest. So yeah, now it is very important to note here that the riser cable that Corsair are currently selling is a PCIe 4.0 cable, and as you know, the 50 series cards like the RG Astro are PCIe 5.0. So if your motherboard supports PCIe 5.0, you probably need a PCIe 5.0 cable, otherwise you might have some issues. People report all kinds of weird issues with like black screens and stuff like that. Look, in general, I would recommend not to mount your GPU vertically. Riser cables have a lot of problems. I have very bad experience with them, and I don't really recommend them, to be honest. If you want to be like headache free without any problems, mount your GPU like regularly and don't vertically mount it. But in any case, that even if you did buy a PCIe 4.0 riser cable and you do have PCIe 5.0 card, it will still work. It will work on a PCIe 4.0 speed. But again, it makes a lot of problems. There's a lot of posts on Reddit of people having troubles with it, even if they try to change the setting in the motherboard to PCIe 4.0, it still doesn't work very good. And yeah, it just have a lot of problems. So I don't really recommend it, but if you want to do it, this is how you do it. Okay, now in this next section, we are going to take a look on some reviews and builds that are made by people who bought the case. Hopefully, it will give you a little bit better understanding on what to expect, and also see some honest reviews by people who actually own the case. Okay, so first review here is by Robert over here at Newegg. And as you can see in the picture, Robert did went with a 360mm AIO cooler right over here at the top. I also have a pretty big graphic card, what looks like a full-size ATX motherboard over here. And let's see what he has to say. So the pros for him, the Corsair Frame 4000D RS. So he bought the RS, which comes with free 120mm fans, which are not ARGB, if you remember. And what he says is the Frame 4000D RS is a big case. It is comical that it is classified as a mid-tower PC case. It can handle E-ATX motherboards easily. I don't think he has an E-ATX motherboard, but yeah, you can see the amount of space he has here. And that's what I told you in the size section, that this case is big for a mid-tower. And also you can see that is confirmed by someone who owns it, and he says it himself. For graphics cards, I can't imagine a card that won't fit in the case. And yeah, as you can see, there's plenty of room for that. The case has a built-in GPU support, but my graphics card, an RTX 4080 Super, was too short to make use of that support without relocating it. I opted to use the support that can with my card instead. Okay, so what he's talking about is there's a small little piece that comes with a ASUS graphics card that give you support for the graphic card, and he said that the built-in support was the graphic card was too short, and He ended up using the support that came with his graphic card. Speaking of graphic card options, this case allows you to rotate the back card slot panel by 90 degrees so you can vertical mount your graphics card. Unfortunately, Corsair offers the required PCIe riser cable separately, so plan for that if you want to vertical mount your GPU. Then Robert says there are some very innovative engineering going on here that I've never seen before. First, nearly every part of the case is removable. This can be cumbersome as you build, since you will have an increased number of screws to keep track of as you disassemble the case panels and parts. But it is worthwhile to trade off to make building easier. Robert says here that because the case is very modular, you do have a lot of screws and a lot of removable parts. That's why I told you you should definitely check the building guide that Corsair have on their website, and of course it will come with your case. When you get your case, you will have a QR code which you can scan, and you can go to the guide over there. This case is optimally designed to sit on a desktop, not a floor level, with all the front I/O ports and power button on the very bottom of the case. So yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, in the front panel section, you saw all the buttons and all the stuff on the bottom, so I wouldn't really recommend it to put it on the floor. With a clear side window, it is nice to be able to hide all the cables very easily with the modular design that allows trucking everything away. This is a case that meant to be on display. So he talks about that the case looks very good. It hides all the cables very good, and you can display your components in a very nice fashion. At first, for me, this case comes with a standardized front panel pin plug instead of individual wires for power button and LED. I have been waiting for something like this for decades. No more hunting down user manual or pinout diagrams. So what Robert is talking here is actually something I didn't mention, and I want to show you this. So if we take a look at the guide, we can see all the components or the accessories that comes with the case. You can see that there is a front I/O adapter, and this front I/O adapter, if you ever built a PC before, you know that probably the most annoying part on building a PC is connecting all the small little cables that you need for the front panel connectors. What Corsair did here, they included an adapter which takes all those small cables and just make it one big connector that you need to connect to your motherboard, which is a lot easier to do. I didn't mention it because a lot of cases do it these days, and they give you this kind of adapter. I sometimes don't use the adapter for, I don't know, maybe just I got used to connect all the small connectors with all the builds that I did, so it didn't really matter too much for me. But if you are a new builder, this is definitely makes your life a lot easier, which is good. Now let's see some cons for Robert here. For the price, the case offers a lot, and any negative can be overlooked. Corsair has gone so low with the power button, USB, and audio ports that they had to wire them outside of the case and loop them back in. This wire harness pokes out of the bottom and can be visible when the case is sitting near eye level, like this case seems to be designed for. See my photos with the red arrows for such a massive case. It seems it could have been designed to hide the front panel wiring better. So let's see what Robert is talking about. I've got a couple of pictures here. As you can see, he put his case in some kind of a cabinet under his desk. And this is the cable that he's talking about. And you can see over here, this is the bottom of the case. So this is the front panel over here, and this is the bottom of the case over here. You see the cable is running under it. Yeah, it doesn't look very pretty, to be honest. I also agree that they could have done a little bit better job on hiding it, but yeah, it is what it is. Other than that, doesn't seem like Robert have too many complaints. He seems pretty satisfied. So the overall review is not much else is left to be said. The case is of good build quality with no metal burrs or sharp edges. Everything lined up properly and it looks good. There are many options for mounting fans, all-in-one radiators and other hardware. The bundled fans are quiet and the case has no problems with airflow. This is something that Corsair are very known for. Their fans are very good airflow. They're very quiet. And remember, these are 120 millimeter fans that come included with the case. So that's good to hear. For the price, it is a smart buy if you have room for such a big case. Okay, so our next review here is by Trevor. And Trevor says, it's so close, but it's still great. We can see that Trevor also built his with 360 millimeter AIO cooler right over here at the top. And by the way, if you're wondering, should you put a fan at the back? Because you can see that he actually put the tubes from the left and not from the right. Because the tubes are here, it's pretty much impossible to put a fan at the back. So you basically kind of not having an exhaust in the PC, which is fine with pretty much most modern gaming PCs these days. And the reason why is because if you have, you have three types of airflow in gaming PC. By the way, I made a video about it not that long ago. If you want, you can watch it over here. You have balance, positive, and negative pressure. So positive is when you intake more than you exhaust. Balance is when you intake as much as you exhaust, or you exhaust as much as you intake. And negative is you exhaust more than you intake. With gaming PCs, you want to, most of the time, have either balanced or positive pressure. Here, it's kind of balanced. It's more towards the positive. And the reason why is because the three fans that are at the front are taking a lot more air than all the other components are taking out. The fans at the top from the 360 millimeter AIO cooler, they exhaust air towards the top. Okay, so the PC takes fresh air from the front. It helps to cool the GPU. The GPU also have fans over here at the bottom. So the GPU gets fresh air for itself. And then for everything else, like even for the SSD right over here, it's getting fresh air. You can see it has a heatsink over here. The RAM is getting fresh air. And then the CPU, because it is water cooled, right? All it needs, it needs just fresh air, and it needs to exhaust, sorry, it needs to intake air towards the radiator, because this is the part that's getting hot, and then all the air will go from the top, outside of the case. So actually having a fan here at the side, it's not really necessary, and it's totally okay configuration like this. And actually a lot of Corsair cases are shipped like this. Even if you buy fans, as you can see here, Trevor bought the ARGB version that comes with 3 fans. They don't include a fan at the back because most PCs can be configured in this way, and it's actually totally okay. So yeah, let's see what Trevor has to say. First impressions on this case are how roomy it is inside, how elegantly laid out it is, and it is general aesthetics. Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, because this is a pretty big case for a mid-tower, it's very easy to work in, and you have a lot of room for everything. You don't need to fight with stuff and, just figure out where to plug things and how to route things. So it's very nice to work on. He also says, I've built a good few custom computers over the decades, and there was a time they were about all the same inside. cheap, sharp metal, a bit of bending, no cable management, etc. It is so much more pleasant building a computer with modern cases, such as the Corsair 4000D series. Each panel is held in place with thumb screws with rubber gasket to prevent marring of the metal and rubbing of the power cord. Once the screws are loosened, there is another retention mechanism that holds the piece in place until you pop it out. I think what he's referring to, and let's see if I can find it here in a different picture. I think I have it in the presentation. Okay, not in the presentation, but in Corsair's guide on how to vertically mount your GPU, you can see that the screws, for example, that holds the GPU bracket, when you take them off, like when you unscrew them, they stay in place. And that's because they have a small, like little bulge that holds the screw in place so you won't lose it. And the whole case is covered by those things, even here. You can see it even here. This is the bottom side panel where the power supply is, and this is the other side panel. You can see this type of screw here as well. When you unscrew it, it stays in place. It's something that you see a lot of times in very high-end cases, and when you buy a brand, like a very known brand case, this is what you get. So this is actually a very good thing, and I also support that. I think manufacturers they don't need to pay too much about those kind of screws, and it just make your life easier. You don't need to like keep screws all around, and yeah, it's very nice. This is a very nice on the glass panel, as there is much less concern for the panel falling out when removing the last fastener. Since this case has a glass panel, it is meant to show off hardware inside. Most people like to show off hardware and not all the wires that connect them, and there were a fair bit of attention given by Corsair for this detail. Inside the case are channels, openings, tie points, and other features to aid in cable management. The case even supports motherboards with power connectors on the back side. I unfortunately don't have one. So he's talking about the BTF style motherboards that we talked about, where you don't have all the cables on the front and you can connect everything at the back. The case is compatible with Corsair's Shift series power supplies. This is a modular power supply that rotates the face. All the modular connectors are on. Makes it very easy to add and remove cables with the power supply installed in the case. So what he is referring to, and this is something that is not very new, but not a lot of people know about this. And not a lot of people actually buying those power supplies because they can get pretty expensive. But Corsair did, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, around 2 years ago, I think, maybe 3. What they did, they put the connectors on the power supply on the side of the power supply and not at the back like it usually is. And the reason for that is when you install the power supply inside the PC, instead of having all the cables connected like inside the case, yeah, you can easily reach out to them when they are on the side, which is nice. I mean, I don't really care about it that much because I think when I build PCs, I always connect the cables ahead of time, but it's good for maintenance. And I think you can see here in the pictures, yeah, what I mean. You can see the cables. This is the side of your case, and you can see the cables, instead of being at the inside, they are on the side. It's a cool idea. I think it's not very practical for most people, to be honest, because again, these power supplies, sometimes they can get pretty expensive, and it's something very minor. You can just pre-install all your cables ahead of time, and I've showed this in my build guide videos. You can watch them in the channel plenty of times. That it's so easy to mount a power supply, even though your cables are not connected from the side. Okay, so let's see what Trevor has to say about cons, like what is not good. Despite all the good, there are few things I didn't like and was honestly a bit shocked Corsair hadn't given as much attention to. I debated between 3 and 4 stars due to these reasons. Okay, this is gonna get interesting. Let's see what he has to say. First and foremost is the weight of cables that comes out of the bottom of the case for the front panel. It's not a mechanical design. I'm not a mechanical designer, but still can't help but feel there was a bit of oversight with how the front panel wires had to exit and re-enter the case in such an obvious spot. At the very least, a cover to hide the little section would have been nice. So yeah, he's again referring to what Robert said about the little cable at the bottom. I don't care about it too much, to be honest, but I think they're right. I think it's not a very elegant way of handling it, and even a simple piece of plastic that is covering it would make this case look a lot different. So they have a point, but let's see what else he have to say. Next was the mounting for the mechanical hard drives. These are becoming a lot less common, but they are still around, and I have 2 of them. I use them for long-term storage that isn't important enough to be on a file server, but important enough to have it in a RAID. So yeah, that's what I told you when we talked about the hard drive in the hard drive section, that if you're building a new PC, you're probably not gonna buy a hard drive these days, but you might have hard drives that you have important files on and you want to transfer them to your new PC. So this is a good example for that. And by the way, RAID, for those of you who don't know, it's an configuration that you do in your BIOS where you take 2 or more hard drives and you put them in one kind of like system that you have easy access to all of them together. RAID also has many benefits. It depends on how you configure the RAID. You can have more speed. You can have redundancy in case hard drive goes kaput. You still have some kind of a backup. There's a lot of things about RAID. You can read about it online if you're interested. But to our point, let's see what he has to say about the mounting the hard drives. The plate meant for holding the second hard drive at the bottom of the case does not leave enough room for the power and SATA cables. It took a lot of fingering to get it all fit right and not feel at risk of pulling the wires out. I don't think Corsair tried mounting at that location. Let's see if we can actually see what he means by that. I think I saw a picture here somewhere. So yeah, there it is. I found a picture on Reddit, and you can see here a 3 terabyte hard drive mounted on a bottom of white Corsair Frame 4000D. And you can see what he means by because it is very close to the floor. The cables are like, it's very hard to cramp them in. And that's something that you need to consider. Again, it's only relevant if you are going to use hard drives at the bottom or SSDs. But you will still be able to install them. It's just going to be a little bit of a hassle. But again, it's good that this case is modular. You can remove this part before you install your hard drive, then you can put it back in. I think this part gets completely by itself with all the fans, so you don't need to like remount the fans or anything like that, so that's a good thing. Okay, let's see what Trevor has more to say. A little more on the minor side, but the very top panel is a bit too thin, in my opinion. The panel has a pattern cut in it for the airflow, but the panel is so thin that it flexes very easy. If anything falls in it, even gently, it will likely warp and no longer look nice. So he is talking about the top panel. Let's see if I can show it to you. So he's talking about this piece right here, the top panel right here, and what he has to say that it feels a little bit too thin. The panel has a pattern cut-in for airflow, but the panel is so thin it flexes very easy. If anything falls on it, even gently, it will likely warp and no longer look nice. I don't see a big issue with that, to be honest. I mean, the top. Okay, I see what he means. It means that if you drop anything on your computer, for example, by mistake, then it will bend a little bit because all of these holes make the piece not very rigid, and then just make it a little bit more flexible. I don't see that as a big concern. He also says that's something very minor. The last glaring issue I have is with the fans at the front. The fans are addressable RGB, ARGB. This is not compatible with Corsair iCUE link system. The case assumes that you will be connecting these to an ARGB header on the motherboard, but the iCUE software does not control this header. I think that's not actually true. I think you can control ARGB headers with iCUE software. I did it a lot of times before, but what he is referring to is Corsair has a lot of new iCUE products, and they usually, what you need for them is a hub. For example, Corsair have the iCUE Link water cooling radiators, and what they have with this kind of water coolers, you don't need cables to connect each fan individually. The fans connect one to each other with this very special connectors and cables that you get with the cooler when you buy it. And then you connect the whole thing to an iCUE Link hub, and then you connect it to the PC. Now, the fans that you get with the case are not iCUE Link. Corsair do have cases that come pre-installed with iCUE Link fans. They are very different cases. The 4000D doesn't have a variant for that. But what he says that he didn't manage to control the normal fans with the iCUE Link software. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think it's not true. I think I did manage to do so. Either way, you can use other different softwares like OpenRGB or Signal RGB to control your RGB. So I wouldn't worry about this too much. The plugins, there are plugins for iCUE for various motherboard manufacturers, but they only pass along control for the RGB headers and not the ARGB headers. That's not true as well. I did it many times before. I even have a video on how to use OpenRGB, and I showed an example for a case with fans that are connected to an ARGB, and it worked totally fine. So this was particularly disappointing as I was transitioning over from a Corsair iCUE 220T RGB case that included the lighting node and allowed the iCUE software to control these same type of fans. This case did not include the cheap little board that allowed iCUE to control these case fans. Because they are connected directly to the motherboard. You don't need any kind of controller. I actually think that's a good thing. That's a plus. Because if you take a look on how much this little hub is costing you, it's almost the price of like half the case. I actually think it's better not to have this, but that's Trevor's opinion. Overall review. This case is not too bad. Look at the reviews carefully as you decide whether to buy this case or not. as multiple model years and options are piled under the same listing to preserve the ratings and reviews. Actually, that's very true. I did notice that because it has the same name, the 4000D, like the old 4000D, you can find a lot of mixed reviews. Well, for example, this is the frame, right? This is the new version. And you can find also reviews for the old version. So that's the 4000D. That's the older one. And yeah, you can find mixed reviews. So he has a point about that. That's why I'm making this video, so you would know. And yeah, let's see what else he has to say. For what it is worth, I also installed the Corsair iCUE Link Titan 360RX LCD all-in-one water cooler in this case for my setup, and it fit well. The cooler also included a iCUE Link system hub, but again, this cannot interface with the ARGB fans included in this case. You have to use a completely independent controller for them if you want to control them in iCUE, and that is true. You can see that the water cooling solution that he bought is an iCUE water cooling, like I showed you over here, right? But because the fans do not have an ARGB plug that you connect to the motherboard and it goes through a hub, where's our hub? This one. Then it might be that your software won't be recognizing both of them. As you can see here, he did manage to sync the RGB from the graphic card, the RAM, and the front fans, because they're all connected to the motherboard, but then the cooler has its own lights because it has a hub. Yeah, it's something to pay attention to. If you are buying a water cooling from Corsair, I would recommend not to buy an iCUE Link water cooler. Buy a water cooler that has no iCUE Link mentioned in it, and they have plenty of those. For example, you can get the Age 150i, I think it's called. Okay, yeah. So iCUE Age 150i, for example, is a normal water cooler. Let's see. As long as it doesn't says anything about link, you should be totally fine. They don't mention the hub here. No, they do not mention anything about the hub. So this is for example a good cooler that you can get. You just need to make sure that it doesn't say link and the product name. Just make sure that what you buy is not link. And if you do buy a Corsair case that is link, okay, and they have a few models like that, it is recommended to buy an iCUE Link water cooler, like iCUE Link Age 150i. So you can see you have two versions for each cooler that they sell. And yeah, if you want your RGB synced all together, it is important to buy something that is compatible. Okay, so this is another important review. This is over on Amazon, verified purchase. And what they say is about the 200 millimeter fans. If you remember, we talked about it in the fan section, that you can mount 200 millimeter fans at the front, two of them. And actually, the one that I gave an example for, this user has bought exactly the same fan. So I think it's very important to see what he has to say. And what he says is the case looks fantastic with a new grill in the front. I took away 1 star because it says it supports 200 millimeter fans at the front. It does, but after reading through the documentation and the website, I found no warning stating that in order to fit them, you had to remove the PSU shroud. Since had already ordered the fans, I took a Dremel to it and cut a portion of the shroud out in order to fit the fans. I went for 200 millimeter in the front, 360 rad on the side, 3 120 millimeters fans at the top, and 140 millimeter on the back. We will see that in a moment. The cooling is crazy good, better than my previous Be Quiet case, and it has tons of cable management options. So let's take a look at the pictures here, because I think it's very important to see exactly what he means. So as you can see, this is what the case looks like when you have the radiator on the side like this, with the tubes coming here. He also vertically mounted his GPU, and you can see it's a very big GPU and you still have enough space. I think there's also some kind of arm holding here the GPU. I don't think it's something that comes with the case. Maybe it's something that came with his GPU. It also doesn't look very straight. Maybe he did some kind of solution for it. And you can see the 140 millimeter fan here at the back. You can see how big it is compared to a 120. And if we take a look on this picture right here, you can see that the fan, these are the 200 millimeter fans. And you can see here the cutout that he made. You can see the picture here. He actually had to cut the side of the protective, this piece right here. You see all this PSU shroud? He had to cut this in order to fit the fans. Now it's interesting because, oh, I see why it happened. You can see there's space here between the fans. At first I said, why didn't he just put the fans a little bit more up? But in order to fit the whole 200 millimeter fan, you can see it gets a little bit wider on the sides. And that's why he had to cut the case. So yeah, that's something that it's actually a big pitfall you might ended up with. I wonder if we could have maybe pushed the fans a little bit more to the top. I guess he probably thought about it, but by judging how big these fans are, I don't think it will matter that much. Look how much space is required. I think even if he passed this point right here, it's still not enough. You will still need to cut. So yeah, that's something Corsair need to think about it. Maybe make this cut ahead of time and just save users time. But yeah, it's a cool build, very performance oriented, as you can see. Big fans, huge radiator, a lot more fans at the top, big 140 millimeter fans at the back. Pretty interesting build, and thought this is something that is worth mentioning. Okay, so with that, I think that's pretty much wraps up this video and this overview about the Corsair Frame 4000D. I think we have enough information to know everything we need to know about the case, whether if you should buy it or not, what you need to expect. The only two problems that I found were the 200 millimeter fan support at the front. You can have a bit of a pitfall over there. And if you buy water cooling AIO, make sure you don't buy an iCUE Link product, and buy a normal iCUE product. Okay, so don't buy a Link product, buy an iCUE product. And you should be able to, if you buy the ARGB version, you should be able to sync all the lights together. Another thing is the bottom front panel. So I would buy this case if you are planning to put it on the table, not on the floor. Other than that, it offers very good airflow, very good building capability. It looks very nice in my opinion. The build quality is great from what people say. And yeah, I recommend you to read more reviews about it. Make sure you see the Frame 4000D in the pictures and not the 4000D. And the way you can distinguish between the two, so here I replaced the image with the original 4000D, and you can see how different they are in terms of looks. There are no front panel ports at the bottom here, they are at the top, and there's also no mesh grill for the PSU shroud. So make sure you take a look on this case and not on this one. This is the older version. And if you have any questions and you want to know anything else, anything that I missed, I didn't mention, please feel free to comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.